Can we turn this down, please? Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanata Bhaktasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Bande Gura Shri Charanarvindam Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Bande Gura Shri Charanara Brindam Shri Vigrara Dhana Nityanana Shingara Tanma Niramajanado Shri Vigrara Dhana Nityanana Juktasya Bhaktamsya Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Kritaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Shiradhikama Davayara Para Namna Shiradika Pratikshana swa Dhanandalupasya Vande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Charanaravinda Ne kunja yono Rati keli siddhai Jajali bheri jokti Apekshaneya Ne Tatratidakya Ativalabhasya Vande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Sakshat Haritena Samasta Shastre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhavi Sakshat Haritena Kintu Prabhorja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Dayam Stupam Tasya Dasashti Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Dayam Stupam Tasya Dayam Stupam Tasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Dayam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityana Nine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vachatari Shatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vachatari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Nityananda Oh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Tanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadha Shivasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam
Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasakundalam Gokule Brajamanam
Yashoda Biyolokaladhavamanam Paramrishtamadhyanta Sodrutya Gopya
Paramishtam Atyantatu
Yudam Tam Muhurnitra Yugmam Brajantam Karamboja Yugmena Satankanetram
Rudanta Muhunnaitam Jumamishantam Karambujan Jugmena Satankanetram
Mushwasakam Patri Rekankakanta Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhaktibaddham
Mosasakam Patire Kankakanta Sita Gribam Damodara Bhaktivadam
Iti Draksvalila Bhirananda Kunde Swaghosham Nimajantam Akhyapayantam
Rudantisarade Ananda Kunde Swagosham Nemayantam Akapayantam
Tadiyesha परीक्षिताज्ञेषु भक्तैर्जिता त्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्तं सतावृत्ति वन्दे
तदीयस्थितागेषु भक्तजितादं पुनः प्रेमतस्तं सतावृत्ति वन्दे
त्वरं देव मोक्षं न मोक्षं वदिं वा न चन्यं वृणेऽहं परे सदपिह
परं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षं वदिवा न चान्यवीयं वरसरप्रिया
इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबालं सदा मे मनस्य वीरस्तं किमन्ये
इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबालं सदा मे मनस्यं वीरं किमन्ये
इदं ते मुखाम्भोजम् अत्यन्तनीलये वृत्तं कुन्तलै स्निग्ध रक्तश्च गोप्या
इदं ते मुखाम्भोजम् अत्यन्तनीलम्
मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य विरस्तं कालं लक्षलाभये
चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य विरस्तं
नमो देव दामोदर अनन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःख जलब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्यति दीनं बतानो गृहाणेश मामज्ञं ये दक्षिदृश्या कुबेरात्मजौ बद्ध कृत्यैव यद्वत् त्वया मोचितौ भक्तिभाजो कृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकं मे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेऽस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्तेऽस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकाय त्वदीयाय प्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर राधे, जय राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर राधे, जय यशोदनन्दन यशोदनन्दन राधे, जय राधा नीलमाधव राधा नीलमाधव राधे, जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा, जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय, जय गौरनिताय, जय सीताराम सीताराम सीताराम, लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान, जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह, जय भक्त प्रहलाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, श्रील जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव, श्री दामोदर अष्टकम की जय।
Krishna Paraparamsa Prabha Jagacharya Suttara Srishima Diskon Pratishta Viviti Samstapagacharya Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priya Jana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhacharvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhakti Raghunath Jiva Gopal Bhakti Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Nanta Kuri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Si Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Paramadayal Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Pramanama Sankirtanika Janaka Prema Purushottama Sri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavarana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Inam Sankirtan Jaya Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Prihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopna Radha Kun Sam Kun Giriraj Gopodhan Ki Jai Shri Prajabim Vrindavan Mathur Dham Ki Jai The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakra Dham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Shrimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani वृंदे देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, बोलो श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय, यशोदा माई दामोदर मास की जय, गौरी प्रमानंदे. All glories to somebody bodies, all glories to somebody bodies, all glories to somebody bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Haribo. You sing the singing? No? Hmm? What?
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Praladaladarayine.
Praladaladarayine.
Hiranyakashipo Vakshaha.
Hiranyakashipo Vakshaha.
Shilatanka Nakalaya.
Jaya Silatanka Nakalaya.
Ito Narsimha Bharata Narsimha.
Ita Nisingha Bharata Nisingha.
Yato Yato Yamita To Narsimha.
Jaya Jata Jata Jamita Nisingha.
Bahe Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha.
Jaya Nisingha Hridaye Nisingha.
Narsimha Saranam Prapade.
Narasingha Madin Sharanam Prapade.
Gavagara Gamana Vaye Naka. Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Sabakara Kamala Bare Nata Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Danavinga Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jayo Narsimhadev, Jayo Narsimhadev, Narsimhadev, Jayo Narsimhadev. Jayo Bhakta Prahlad, Jayo Bhakta Prahlad, Jayo Bhakta Prahlad, Jayo Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कृष्ण हरि भगवान की जय, भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय पियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सत्यवताय नमः नमः. वृंदायै तुलसीदेवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसीदेवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय। गौरांग चंद्र गुरु would you like to sing Tulsi?
ठीक है। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ये अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावा हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ये अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावा हे अभिलाषी।
ये तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंशा पूर्णा हो
एक मार शरणनाय बारवंशा पुला।
कृपा गोरी गोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करा करे वृंदावनवासी।
और यही अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वा
मोराए अभिला विला कुंज दियावा।
नयने हेरी बो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
अमिनायाने दिवसदा जुगारूपदासी।
यही निवेदन धरो सखेरनुगाता कर
एने विधानादार सखीरायनो गदाका।
सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी
सेवा यारे कर दिए करो निज दासी।
दीना कृष्ण दासे को यही न मोरा हो
दिन कृष्ण दासे का ये नाम
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदायन भाषी
श्री Radha Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणशान्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
Jayani Kani Sapapani Brahmachari Kalesa Tani Tani Prana Sante Pradakina Pade Pade
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणशान्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmachari Kalesa Tani Tani Prana Sante Pradakina Pade Pade
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणशान्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
Tani Kani Sapapani Brahmachari Kalesa Tani Tani Prana Sante Pradakina Pade Pade
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Vrindaya Tulsi Deviya Priyaye Kish Sorry
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Sattavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai tulasi debai priyayai kesava satya Vishnu bhakti pradevi sattvatai namo namaha. Vrindayai tulasi debai priyayai kesava satya Krishna bhakti pradevi sattvatai namo namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shishi, Radha, and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always sing in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikyastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpanamajanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shri Akari Vichandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Ita Rishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midishamya Janinanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Kitwai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tavapara Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadarudhaya Gira Purakanchitam Vapukada Tavanam Grahane Bhavishyati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakrusha Prabhusha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Asli Shavapadaраtam Pinastumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Viradhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Tvisha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Pasatyari Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the five conditions of life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, once you chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if it handles him roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present for me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kirastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Bancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Paritanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Gaura Pramanande Hari Bol. So, Shri
Guru Pranama Om Ananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Chitaha Pachikamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Padichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Sivasavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nukarakita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupa Nugavrudapa Abhisidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gorakishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Vir Bhava Bhamistvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhama Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanyam Damne Guru Chuse Namaha Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamate Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyadvindaranya Kalpradurmadaha Shimadrat Nagara Simasanastito Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamana Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsiva Tatatastita Karsan Venusmanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasad Masubhapa Viksha Lakshavite Susrabi Rabipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kranantam Arvinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakiri Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakilendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sarujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragam Yo Varyo Ratapi Manasomuni Pungamanam So Pyasti Yat Prabhadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagananda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagananda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diva Manajasta Taiva Samprakya Rupa Mahima Sanayanis Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavita Vistabirya Evanicha Rupa Kalabi Goloka Evanavasata Kilatma Bhutto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukala Nimedatistan Nanavatar Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Asya Prabha Prabhuto Jagananda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Mitsai Vedu Vataya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasuya Prani Nam Patifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Mahesu Aridama Satesu Tesu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitasya Yena Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sistista Te Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chitesta Tesa Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayate Nahita Tapritagasti Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikari Had Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure David Dasantaram Abhipetya Dipayate Viviteti Samana Dharma Yastadri Geva Hitcha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Akarna Narna Vajali Bhajatismi Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananda Sarama Kupa Adhara Sakti Avalamya Paramsam Tim Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavyam Vinam Tiloma Vilaja Jagananda Nanta Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Viseso Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakaleshna Jesute Jasriyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitat Pratatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayastik Maladi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamamu Maruti Sascha Kalasta Takma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Bhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajam Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutayasta Pamsi Brahma Dikita Patakava Tiasta Jiva Yadata Matri Bhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopamata Vendra Mahoswakarma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Valsaya Moha Gurgor Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisim Tanamaparete Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatara Jamabu Mishti Tamani Ganama Hiptaramamritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Siprasaki Chiranandam Jyotipuram Apitaza Swadhyam Apichasa Yatashiradi Bishavati Saravi Vyasti Sumahan Nimesa Dakyava Rajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya Svajeshvita Dvipam Tamaham Ihugol Kamiti Yam Vidantaste Santaksiti Virachara Katipaya Guru Vastika prayers, Kijay. The spiritual masters receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest right to extinguish, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance of the lotus feet of such spiritual master, who's an ocean of auspicious quality. Chanting the holy name, dancing, ecstasy, singing, and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the sanctifying movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the melodies of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance of the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance of the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and stuck. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance of the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal passion of Radhika and Madhava and the qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance of the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. Spiritual master is being honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master who's a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantha Raja Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, text number 4, Prabhu the Karma Daivenam Trayo Vimsati Kogana Parita Janaya Swabhir Matrabhir Adi Purusham. Prabhuda, awaken, karma, activities, daivena, by the will of the Supreme. Traya Vimsatika, by the 23 principal ingredients. Gana, the combination. Prerita, induced by. Ajanayat, manifested. Swabhi, by his personal. Matrabhi, plenary expansion. Adipurusham, the gigantic universal form. Vishwarupa, translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Virat Rupa, or Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalists, is not an... What? I'm sorry, yeah. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord, came into existence. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Virat Rupa, or Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalists, is not an eternal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation. Lord Krishna exhibited this Virat, or Vishwarupa, to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalist that he is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna exhibited the Virat Rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virat Rupa. The Virat Rupa is not, therefore, an eternal form of the Lord exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The Archa Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virat and Archa are all non-different from his eternal form as Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord, came into existence. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So everything has its origin in Krishna. Nothing is independent of the Lord. This is the baseline understanding of a devotee. And therefore, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajantimam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Krishna says, and I'm the source of everything material and spiritual. And anyone who knows this surrenders unto me and engages in devotional service. So that is 10th chapter, 8th verse. One person who was a Mayavadi told me once, you know, the only real proof you have that Krishna is the supreme God is the 10th chapter, 8th verse. That's the only proof you have. He said, so that's not really solid. It's only one proof. That's a person who's not really read Bhagavad Gita at all, or Srimad Bhagavatam at all. So they think that's the only place where it clearly says that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, every verse of the Bhagavad Gita indicates that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Bhagavatam is full of validation that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have the example of Brahma, and you have the example of Shiva, and you have the example of Bhisma Pitamaha, actually of all the the Alvars and all the great personalities in the history of the world, they're all saying that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. So these are people who have hardly read the Vedic knowledge, and they don't really have a clear understanding of who God is actually. So this verse says, I am the source of, the 10th chapter, 8th verse, I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So, in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada gives many other Vedic validations that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. And for the Mayavadis, the highest authority in the Vedas are the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the philosophical parts of the original 4 Vedas. But for the devotees, the highest principle of validation that Krishna is the Supreme Personality God is Bhagavad Gita, because that's Krishna speaking about himself, and Srimad Bhagavatam, they're pure devotees of Krishna speaking about him. However, the validation is there also in the Upanishads. So Prabhupada quotes the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, which is in the Atharva Veda, the 4th Veda. And it's Gopala Tapani Upanishad 1.24. It is said, Yo Brahmanam Vidadati Purvan Yo Vai Vedams Chaga Payati Sma Krishna. It was Krishna who in the beginning instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge and who disseminated Vedic knowledge in the past. Well, here we see the Vedas were originally spoken by Narayana very, very long ago. And they were again spoken in the abbreviated form by Vyasadeva to his son Sukadeva Goswami. And then Sukadeva Goswami expanded the 4 nutshell verses of the Vedas into the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the Srimad Bhagavatam is repeated by Sutta Goswami. And so in this way, we have the genesis of it is originally Narayana himself, who's expansion of Krishna. And then Lord Brahma receives the knowledge from Narayana in the beginning of the material creation. So the history of the Vedas goes back a very, very long time, right at the beginning of the material creation. Okay. So here we have an Upanishadic validation that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. So what is this man saying? He said, well, the only validation you have is the 10th chapter, 8th verse. No, sir. It goes right back to the original Upanishads. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Narayana Upanishad, which says, Ata Purusho Ha Vai Narayano Kamayata Praja Srejayati. Then the Supreme Personality Godhead Narayana desired to create living entities. And then the Upanishad continues. Narayanad Brahma Jayate, Narayanad Prajapati Prajayate, Narayanad Indro Jayate, Narayanad Asto Vasavo Jayante, Narayanad Ekadasa Rudra Jayante, Narayanad Dwada Satitya. From Narayana, Brahma is born, and from Narayana, the patriarchs are born. From Narayana, Indra is born, and from Narayana, the 8 Vasas are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born, and from Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. This Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. Okay, so the quote stops at the 12 Adityas are born. And then Prabhupada says, this Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. Now, how do we know that? Well, it continues. In the same Vedas, meaning in the Upanishads, Brahmanyo Devaki Putra, the son of Devaki, Krishna, is the Supreme Personality. And that's from, again, the Narayana Upanishad, number 4. Then it said, Eko vai Narayana asina brahmana isano napo nagni samo neme dva apritavi na nakshatrani nasurya. In the beginning of the creation, there was only the Supreme Personality God, the Supreme Personality Narayana. There was no Brahma, no Shiva, no fire, no moon, no stars in the sky, no sun. Then the Upanishad, number 1, in the Upanishad. So that last quote was from the Upanishad. Then in the Upanishad again, it is also said that Lord Shiva was born from the forehead of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the Vedas say that it is the Supreme Lord, the creator of Brahma and Shiva, who is to be worshipped. So then Prabhupada gives other quotes from, now he gives some quotes from the Varaha Purana and so forth. So here he's giving validated proof from the Vedic literature that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. Now you might ask a question, you say, well, wait a minute, it says Narayana, it doesn't say Krishna. But in other place, Prabhupada quotes the verse that clearly says that Krishna is the source of Narayana. And that is in the Brahma Samhita. And it's also quoted in Bhagavad Gita. I'll find that in a second. Okay, so here we see that the proof that Krishna is the Supreme Personality God is all over the Vedas. It's not just in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But yet these jokers, they try and they think they know something, and they say something that's completely wrong, and they stick by it. But that means that they're very neophyte in understanding Vedic knowledge. So if we understand, then we can answer them and show them where the actual, information is. And that's why we attend classes, because we want to learn how to answer such nonsense people. If not, then they prevail. And if we don't know, then we get confused. And when they throw something at us that we can't answer. Okay, so therefore, in a very interesting class Prabhupada gave, which is Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 7th to 10th verse in Los Angeles in 1969. And I'm not going to read all of it. I just want to read some things that are just wonderful explanations by Prabhupada. And he says, what is actually Krishna teaching that's unique? Well, what is unique about Krishna's teaching, especially in Bhagavad Gita? He's teaching love of God as the highest principle, and this is also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says, there is nothing artificiality. So there's no question of sectarianism, that in this temple the Christians will come or the Mohammedans will not come. Anyone can come to this temple, because we are teaching what? Teaching love of Godhead. Either you become Christian or Mohammedan, Hindu. How can you deny God? Those who are denying God, their case is different. But one who is accepting God as the central figure in religion, how they can deny this movement, meaning Krishna consciousness? Because we are teaching love of Godhead. That's all. See, so That's a very important point. See, we're not saying, oh, Muslims can't come here or Christians can't come here. We're saying everybody can come here. And everybody that comes here who believes in God, they will realize that we're teaching love of God. We're not teaching some other philosophy. We're teaching love of God. So they should be very happy, and they should be interested to know also more about loving God rather than just doing rituals. You go to a Hindu temple, they're doing rituals all the time, right? Is there love of God? There might be some, but it's all what you would call based on ritualistic offerings. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, there's this spontaneity of love of God. Right? We want to please his senses, not our senses. We want to use our senses to please his senses. So when you're doing rituals, it's usually to get some benefit from God, from the Supreme Personality Godhead or the demigods, and usually from the demigods. That's why in the Hindu temples you'll see all these demigods. What's the purpose of worshiping the demigods? It's to get temporary benefits. So that's not actually love of God. That's negotiating. It's a negotiation, or the art of making a deal, as right? That's Trump, right? The art of making a deal with God. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with love of God, right? When you're making a deal with something, you're trying to get something, you're trying to get more from them than what you're going to give them, right? And that was Trump's thing. You know, oh, I can make a deal with the Chinese. I can make a deal with the Ukrainians. I can make a deal with this one. I can make a deal with that. That's what the Hindu temple is doing. It's helping people make deals, not necessarily with God, but with the demigods, right? But we're not teaching that. That's why we don't ritualize everything. We're more into dancing and chanting and joyfully glorifying God by his holy name and hearing about his transcendental pastimes and his qualities and his names and his great pastimes. So there's a major difference here. And Prabhupada says, because we are teaching love of Godhead, therefore, anyone who is accepting God as the central figure in religion, how can they deny this movement? How can they deny Krishna consciousness? How can they say, oh, this is bogus? It's not bogus. We're actually teaching love of God, and it's joyful. Right? So if you go to a church, some of them are joyful, I'm not going to deny that, but most of them are, it's like somber, because, you know, everyone is suffering and they're praying to God, please give us our bread, and please this, and please that, right? And they're praying, so-and-so is sick, heal him, and this and that. So here we say, only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma from within his heart. Therefore, the principles of religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose, okay, when it says these principles, what's that? The principles are direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what's a direct order? Man manabhava mad bhakto mad yajimam namaskuru mam ivaisasi satyam te pratijani priyasake. That's a direct order. Always think of me. Always become my devotee. Always worship me. Always offer to me whatever you're offering that I accept. And always glorify me. So these are direct orders that he's giving. You know, and sarvadharmam prityaja mami kam saranam brajaham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshishyami masucha. Just surrender unto me, he says. These are direct orders. And if you do this, I'll protect you from your karma. And therefore, don't hesitate. Don't fear. Don't doubt. That's a direct order. Right? So, therefore, Prabhupada is saying here that, therefore, the principles of religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord directly orders at the end of the Bhagavad Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto Him only and nothing more. Are the Hindus following this? No. They're not following this. You know, maybe some, but most of them are not following this. Right? The Vedic principles are to push one toward complete surrender unto Him, meaning Krishna. And whenever such principles are disturbed by the demons, the Lord appears. From the Bhagavatam we understand that Lord Buddha is the incarnation of Krishna who appeared when the materialism was rampant and materialists were using the pretext of the authority of the Vedas. Now he's talking about Brahmins after the beginning of Kali Yuga who continued to do animal sacrifices, and because they could not say the mantras correctly, when they would insert an old cow into the fire of sacrifice, they would pull out a barbecue, and out of embarrassment, they say, "Oh, well, this is Mahaprasadam," and they would give the dead carcass to the people to eat. So they were using the Vedas to commit sinful activities. And Buddha saw this, and he said, this is nonsense. He said, in other words, the Vedas don't say that you should, the Vedas say that you should pull the cow out rejuvenated, or the human being. Therefore they were doing even human sacrifices. But they were able to rejuvenate the person. Therefore, you're not allowed to kill unless you can rejuvenate the person back to life. So in Kali Yuga, they were not, or they're still not saying the mantras correctly. So therefore, they would not be able to rejuvenate the dead cow. So to sort of prove to the ignorant public that, well, this is right, that this is Mahaprasadam, they said. So they were teaching meat eating in the name of religion and using the Vedas. So Buddha saw this and he said, this is nonsense. He said, if that's your understanding of Vedas, I reject the Vedas. And that's exactly what he did. He rejected the Vedas. And then he taught ahimsa parama deva. In other words, the highest principle of religion is nonviolence. But it's shocking that today many Buddhists eat meat. It's shocking. Even monks, like the Dalai Lama, he eats meat. Did you know that? Yeah, look it up. Does the Dalai Lama eat meat? Let's look it up. Although there are certain restrictive rules and regulations regarding animal sacrifice for particular purposes in the Veda, people of demonic tendencies still took to animal sacrifice without reference to the Vedic principles. Okay, so this is in the Bhagavad Gita. This is a devotee that's reading the purport. Then Prabhupada interrupts. He says, just like still animal sacrifice, not only the followers of Vedas, every religion, animal is killed or sacrificed under certain religious rules in the lower stage. In the higher stage, there's no such animal sacrifice. Just like this Krishna consciousness movement, there's no ritualistic process as animal sacrifice. But the Vedas, they will include everyone. Suppose one is addicted to fish eating or meat eating. So the Vedas do not reject him also. He gives him direction that, all right, you can eat meat, but not you can start slaughterhouse. You can sacrifice one goat in the presence of goddess Kali, and then you can eat. That means restriction. Did you find it?
Yeah.
What's it say?
Yeah, there's multiple references. One of them is the title, the Dalai Lama is a meat eater. And so apparently he says that, he still preaches
Let me
that...
tell you what he says. Okay, see if this is right. He says, by eating the animal, you advance its karma to take a human birth. So it's actually beneficial. Is that what he says?
in one of the quotes he said, don't kill the animals, but if it is dead, naturally, then you can eat it. So that's what he is preaching. So you can eat the meat of a dead animal, but do not slaughter.
Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So he did say
Is
that.
there any other quotes about it?
So let's see.
All right, keep
Unlike most Buddhist monks who don't eat meat because they believe it's wrong to slaughter any sentient being, the Dalai Lama is not a vegetarian. In 1960s, he tried it a bit, but he had to give it up after he got sick with hepatitis. His compromise is to eat vegetarian in Dharmashala and meat dishes when he is on the road, and it's offered by his hosts.
Offered by who? His host.
Yeah.
So that's not sure that's meat that's been that died. You see, he's a meat eater. He's a meat eater. All right, you can eat meat, but you can start the slaughterhouse. You can sacrifice one goat in the presence of Goddess Kali, and then you can eat. That means restriction. Goddess Kali cannot be worshipped daily, so at least he is forbidden to eat daily meat. That is the idea. Just like liquor shop is allowed by the government because there are drunkards. They must drink, but under restriction. You cannot keep liquor or wine more than the necessity. There is restriction. In India especially, there is very strict restriction. Not anymore. That restriction was done away with. So similarly, the Vedic principle is to restrict sense gratification under certain rules and regulations. So the animal sacrifice is also restricted in that way. Well, not anymore. Also, you can go into Safeway and buy all the meat you want nowadays, unfortunately. But when people become too much animal eaters and simply giving the evidence of Vedas, in the Vedas it is sanctioned, but without caring for the ritualistic process, at that time Lord Buddha appeared. It is said about Lord Buddha that Sadaya Hridaya Darsita Pasu Gatam. The Lord appeared as Lord Buddha, being compassionate on the poor animals, unrestricted. So this animal killing, no religion sanctions. So in other words, he saw the unrestricted eating of meat 2,500 years ago, and he rejected the Vedas because the people were not following properly. They were misusing the Vedic knowledge, and no longer following the religious sanctions or the religious limitations on meat eating. In your Christian religion also, it is clearly stated, "Thou shalt not kill." But who is caring for that? Nobody is caring. They are killing. That killing process is increasing, and there is reaction also. Every 10 years, you will find one war, killing process upon you. How you can avoid? There must be reaction. You cannot violate the laws of God, and you cannot violate the laws of the state. Similarly, if you violate, you'll have to suffer. You cannot expect peace, and you go on killing animals. That is not possible. If you want peace, then you must think for others also. That is Krishna consciousness. Wow, that's a big statement. He's saying if you want peace, you have to think of others also. You have to think of the welfare of others, not just your own group or your own temple or your own race or your own ethnicity or your own country. You have to think of others also. This is Krishna consciousness. That is God consciousness. How you can kill another animal? He is also a good child of God. So he's saying, how can you kill an animal? The animal is also a child of God, just like you are, right? A father has got some dozens of children. It may be one is useless, but that does not mean father will allow it to be killed, allow him to be killed. If the very intelligent child says, "My dear father, this son is useless, let me kill him," the father will sanction. No, never. Similarly, the animal may be less intelligent. They cannot make protests. They are also nationals. What do you mean by national? One who is born in America is national. Are the animals not born in America? Are they not American nationals? But because they cannot make protests, they cannot make meeting. You are killing them. You see, Is that humanity? And you expect peace? That is not possible. Violation of God, laws of God, one has to suffer today or tomorrow. Today or tomorrow. Wow, very eloquent support of nonviolence to animals, to anybody, not just animals. Just like if you contaminate some disease germ, it may not be manifest immediately, but it will act someday. Similarly, if we're contaminated by sinful activities, it may not be immediately manifest, but you must wait for the reaction. So Krishna consciousness means to understand these things. It is not a bogus propaganda that you meditate 15 minutes and you become God. This is nonsense. This is not such a movement. You have to understand your constitutional position. You have to understand what is God, what is law of God, how it is functioning. These things are necessary. These are meant for human study. They are not meant for animals. This is what our kids should learn right from the beginning. Not that, well, let's hope they learn something in school and get a good job, and let's hope that later on they might take an interest in Bhagavad Gita. That's nonsense. This is the first thing they should learn. Then if they go to school and they teach other things that are different, they can protest, or they can say, this is nonsense. I'm not going to be part of it, right? But if you just put them in school and let them teach them, and now they're going to start teaching sex education in kindergarten. Right now it's like 3rd or 4th grade. They're going to go down to kindergarten, and kindergarten they'll bring in all kinds of perverts to talk to them about alternate lifestyles. This is the plan. This is what's happening right now. And you heard what Sanskriti said, and the other girl said, that in their biology class, they begin by teaching that there's no God. So we're not making anything up. This is what's actually happening right now, right? So Prabhupada's saying, look, you got to learn this right in the beginning. This is what we're teaching. If you violate God's laws, you suffer today or tomorrow. So this is not such a movement that you meditate 15 minutes and you become God. That's nonsense. You have to understand your constitutional position. You have to understand what is God, what is law, what are the laws of God, how they are functioning. These are there. In other words, these are meant for human study. They are not meant for animals. So when there are discrepancies of this violation of law, there is incarnation of God. So Buddha appeared in that way. So now he continues reading from the Bhagavad Gita. So it says, sometimes Krishna descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant. Now Prabhupada again interrupts. He says, so there are son protagonists. They say that God cannot come personally. Why? Why God should be restricted? Is God under your regulation or restriction? Then what kind of God he is, or is he? Yes, God can come personally out of his compassion. That is possible. Einstein said he didn't believe that God interfered in the activities of the human beings. In other words, he doesn't come and straighten things out. And before that, a German philosopher argued with Isaac Newton. They had a big argument. Isaac Newton said that God comes every once in a while to fix things. When they get disjuncted, he comes to fix things, right? This is like 500 years ago. He said, and some German philosopher argued with him. No, I don't believe that. He doesn't come. It's not. What do you think? He's such a petty person. He's got to come and fix things. This argument has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. Does God actually interfere in the activities of human beings? Yes. When they deviate, yes, he interferes, of course, because he's in charge of the Vedic Dharma. And when people are trying to destroy it, he will either send someone or he'll appear himself. God can come personally out of his compassion. That is possible, yes. And he comes. He says, here in this verse that I come, but it is not that somebody will imitate and he will say that I am God. No, that also is not the fact. You have to test actually who is really God and who is not. That test, if you have got it, if you are conversant with principles of God's appearance and disappearance and incarnation, then you can understand who is a pretender and who is actually representative of God by action. So, what is he reading? He's reading the 4th chapter, let's see, 7 to 10, but I think he was reading 4th chapter 9. Yeah, which says, Janmakarma chame divyam, evam nyuveti tatpata, tyakpadeham punarjanman, naitimamiti sarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, or Arjuna. So Krishna is saying in this verse, he appears in the material world, right? And he will, but what's his purpose for appearing? It's yada yada hi dharmasya, glanhir bhavati bharata, abhyutanam dharmasya, tadatmanam sijamyaham, 4th chapter, 7th verse. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So who cares what Einstein said, that, oh, I don't believe God interferes. Who cares what Gottlieb, I think that was the guy that argued with Isaac Newton. Who cares what he says? He said, oh, no, God doesn't interfere in the activities of the human being. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just speculating, right? With Krishna here, he says, Parityanaya sadhanam vinasayam chaduskritam dharma samstarpanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear, millennium after millennium. So here we see that these people are talking nonsense. Einsteins and German philosophers and this one and that one. They don't know what they're talking about. They're directly violating or speaking something completely different than what Krishna says. So Prabhupada says, so there are some protagonists. They say that God cannot come personally. Why? Why God should be restricted? Is God under your regulation or restriction? Then what kind of God is he? Yes, God can come personally out of his compassion. That is possible, yes. And he comes. He says here in this verse that I come. But it is not that somebody will imitate and he will say that I am God. Okay. So then Prabhupada continues. He says, Krishna is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his actions. Wonderful actions. Not that he pretended and cheated some people that I am God. Actually, from the beginning of his appearance, he played, I mean to say, uncommon activities. Just like at the age of 7 years old, he lifted the Govardhan hill. There are so many instances of his basically extraordinary qualities. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, Life of Krishna in the 10th canto, there's description. And in the Battle of Kurukshetra, the Bhagavad Gita. So by his activities, his knowledge, and by his opulence, everything is there. Nobody is supposed to be cheated by a pretender if he is actually intelligent. In other words, if you actually have studied and heard Bhagavad Gita spoken properly, and Srimad Bhagavatam, you won't be cheated by the pretenders, the cheaters, the people who say, oh, I am God. You won't be cheated. But if you don't know anything, then, and this is the problem with Hinduism, they don't teach their kids anymore. The grandmother doesn't teach the kids anymore. They send them to school and push them to be academically qualified to come to the West and get big jobs, and even in India to get these IT jobs. They're not interested in this Vedas. Why? Because the British, for 5 generations, they've been teaching young kids in India that the Vedas are all mythology. We have the science. We Europeans and Western people, we're the ones that have the science, the rationality, the reason, and therefore, don't believe that it's all mythology. And it's worked. See, it's worked. Therefore, many young kids today that are born in Hindu families that were taken to ritual demigod temples, they don't believe in God anymore. They say this is a bunch of nonsense. You know, why should I do J Karo? You know, why should I bow down to these idols? And they call them idols now. They don't say, you know, most Hindus refer to deities as idols. See? So you see the sorry state of Hinduism today. So then Prabhupada says, actually from the beginning of his appearance, Krishna played, I mean to say, uncommon activities. Okay, so Krishna is known by his activities or actions, knowledge, and opulence. So, the devotee keeps reading, and Prabhupada stops him again. He says, on this verse, 4th chapter, 9th verse, he reads the verse, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. O Arjuna, what time is it now? 7:15?
7:13.
13. Prabhupada, this is very nice. If one can understand the principles of appearance and disappearance of God, his activities, so simply by understanding these principles, he will be liberated. It is said here that after quitting this body, he is no more coming to take birth again in this material world. So just like a layman does not know how the sun appears and disappears, but an astronomer, he knows very well the movements of the sun, moon, and other planets' appearance and disappearance. This is science, astronomy. Similarly, there is a science of God by which you can understand how God appears, disappears, how he acts, how he works. Everything is there. But if you are not interested, that does not mean that the science of God is false or there is no such science. There is. You must be interested to know. Then you can understand. And if you simply understand the science, then you become liberated. It is open order simply by understanding. In other words, it's a clearly stated, emphatic statement by Krishna in the 4th chapter, 9th verse. If you know the mystery of his appearance and activities, you will be liberated in this lifetime. Simply by understanding, not even engaging yourself in transcendental service to the Lord, simply by understanding the process of appearance and disappearance. So why don't you try that? So this should be the first thing we teach our kids. This should be the first education that they get. It's the science of Krishna, not this junk science that they teach. There's no God. What? How can you even, I mean, it makes my blood boil to think that they're getting away with this. And then our own devotees are supporting it. How can you support such a thing, right? Everyone has a responsibility to teach their children the appearance and disappearance and activities of Krishna. That should be the first thing you talk about with your kids, right from the early age, right up till they go to school, and even while they're in school, they should be reminded of these things, and they should be convinced of it. And when the teacher says there's no God, they should raise their hand and say, I don't agree with you. This is not right. And why are you teaching this? Because there is God. And the teacher, well, let's talk about this later on. No, we have to talk about it right now in front of everybody. You know, and this is a misapplication. This is a false theory that you're trying to force us to accept, and I refuse to accept it. Our kids should stand up and not be docile. You know, just go along with it, because it's wrong. There is a God. Why? How can you say there's no God? Right? So they have to be challenged. They have to be embarrassed. That way, you know, you say, well, no, I don't want my kid to do that. They might throw my kid out of the school. That's good. That's good. Why go to that school? You should only go to a school where they teach you that God exists. What's wrong with being thrown out of that school? It's actually a badge of honor, right? You had the kahunas. That's a gross word from a Norwegian language. you had the stamina and courage to stand up and say, I won't sit here and listen that there's no God, because that's a false statement. Right? They have to be challenged from now on. I mean, we should be militant in that way, not militant in other ways, but militant in that way when they're patently saying something that's false, and they're trying to convince you. Right? And basically, that's what Prabhupada is saying. He's saying, try to understand what is bondage. We are thinking we are free. We are declaring that we belong to the free nation or free community, or everyone is seeking after freedom. But nobody is free. Nobody is free. Everyone is under the stringent laws of nature. So bondage means to remain under the condition of material laws. That is called bondage. Just like people are trying for so many years to go to the moon. The Russian and the American scientists are competing. But they are so bound up. They go some, say, thousands and thousands of miles up, and again come back. Just see how they are bound up. You cannot go. So this is the nearest planet, and there are so many other planets also. So you cannot go by your whims or by your will. This is called bondage. So Prabhupada is rejecting the idea that they've gone to the moon or any other planet, or that they ever will. Right? Okay, we'll stop right there. See, it's very important to hear Prabhupada's words as they are, not interpretations of them. He's very emphatic here. He's not backing down. He's saying, look, simply you understand this one verse, 4th chapter, 9th verse, and you want to understand the mysterious nature of Krishna's transcendental appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, come back again, but goes directly back to Godhead. So this should be our main pedagogic basis of education, the way we educate our kids. The first thing they should learn is and they should be reminded of it all through their life. And we should actively pursue understanding Krishna's activities, Krishna's knowledge, and Krishna's extraordinary it's the knowledge, Krishna's activities, knowledge, and
Appearance.
what?
Appearance.
Appearances, yeah. Okay. Anyway, yes. Okay, are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Now it's very tough for the kids to be bold at the school, but even sometimes adults, even though we've grown up, when we meet with friends, sometimes it's just hard to, we fail to prove that there is a God, at least convince them there is God, they have to pay attention to it.
But that's why we're coming to class. So you get the knowledge to do that. That's why it's very important. If, let's say I don't say anything, right? We just read and don't emphasize points that Prabhupada is emphasizing here. So, say, it's a wonderful class, And you go back and, your kid goes to school and they learn about there's no God. And, nothing changes. We have to know what is the fundamental thing that will save us from repeated birth and death. That's this verse, 4th chapter, 9th verse. Understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities. Right?
The problem is, at least from my personal experience, is I'm still at the mental level, not at the experience or genuine level, to show the other devotees God exists.
First you have to be convinced. Once you're convinced, then you can explain to others.
So how do we make connection? Like, we get the knowledge, but you're not actually genuinely feeling the existence of God. Or maybe sometimes you feel, but when there is a moment to explain to other devotee, that genuinity is not falling.
If you follow the regulative principles, you will understand. If you don't strictly follow the regulative principles, you will not understand, no matter how much you hear. Okay? It all depends on following the 4 regulative principles and the 5th regulative principle, chanting your rounds every day with reverent focus. If you do that and eat only prasadam, right, follow regulative principles, chant your rounds, you will understand. If you don't, or if you just follow 3 principles and not the 4th principle, or if you don't chant your rounds every day, you will not understand.
Yeah, I feel like myself as a Karna situation, even we cannot compare with Karna. When the time comes, we forget the knowledge to give it to others.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. What are you saying?
You know,
You're talking about karna?
Karna, yeah.
Karma.
No, not karma.
Karna.
Karna, yeah.
Okay, what was the what do you see in karna that relates to you?
Yeah, it's like when there is a time to share the knowledge disappears.
No, see, Karna committed an offense. He lied to his guru. You understand? He lied to his guru, Parasuram. He claimed that he was not a Kshatriya. And then Parasuram found out that he was. So he cursed him that whatever you have learned, you will forget it when you need it.
So
am I following? Are you going to lie to your guru? You understand that? Don't just throw names out. You have to know the real story about that person. You're saying, well, I'm like Karna, you know, he couldn't remember things. No, there's a reason why. Because he lied to his guru. So you have to understand things in their proper perspective. Otherwise, you take things out of context and you use it. So, wow, Karna can't remember, so I can't remember. No, that's not proper.
I think my point is because in Karna's case, Guru cursed, but in our situation, should we take it as an example that when you are not genuinely following some instructions and you may be pretending that you are gaining the knowledge, but when the real time comes...
The question is, why pretend?
It's unknowingly pretending.
What?
Unknowingly. Like you're not fully attentive.
How can you say it's unknowing when you're coming to class and we're discussing things? And we're talking about the hard things to understand. The hard things to understand. What is it? If you understand the appearance and activities of Krishna, you will be liberated and go back to God. Guaranteed. So why should we not focus on the appearance and activities, the mysterious appearance and activities and transcendental activities of the Lord, if we understand them and believe these things, because it proves that Krishna is God by his actions, by his knowledge, and what was the third thing?
Appearance, activities, and knowledge.
Okay. So, therefore, why should we doubt this? Let's just focus on it. That's what we're doing today. We're hearing what Prabhupada is saying about this. Right? So, it's not that, oh, I can't do it because of this or that. No, you can do it if you want to. But if you keep saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, then you're not going to do it. So stop saying that. You can do it. You have the potential to do it. Every human being who has a human body has the potential to understand Krishna properly. The animals don't. So if you keep saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, next life you'll be an animal. Because then you can say, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. But if you say that as a human being, you're not telling the truth. You can do it. It's that you don't want to do it. So you can do it. You have the equipment to do it. You have the mind, you have the intelligence, you have the highly developed senses, you have, good intelligence, and you live near the temple, and the classes are here, and we're talking about Krishna, we're not talking about Shiva and Brahma and Indra. We're talking about Krishna, uniquely about Krishna. So you can do it. You have everything to help you do it. But if you keep saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, then you won't do it. You're convincing yourself that you can't do it, although you have the ability. right? You're invested. You're vested with the ability to understand Krishna. But if you keep saying, I can't do it, next life you'll be an animal, where you can get away with saying, I can't do it, because you don't have the equipment to do it anymore. So instead of having a human body, you have an animal body. An animal has to act as an animal. They can't act as a human being. Right? So don't say, I can't do it.
Thank
You can
Maharaj.
do it. Learn that one thing today. Whether you do it or not, that's your business. But you can do it. You have everything necessary to understand Krishna. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Just in the further context, as Prabhu was telling about not able to explain to some people the God does exist. So some of like my friends, those don't believe in God. So initially I tried, but then eventually I stopped talking about God and start sharing about the basic fundamentals, like we are doing food distribution through food trucks. Then suddenly they got interested.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about God, they think like it's
not a subject of discussion for
yes.
them because they don't believe he exists.
Yes.
Or they don't want to hear anything because they've heard so many diverse theories that they're just disgusted with it. The Muslim says this, the Christian says that, the Hare Krishnas say this. So I don't want to talk about this anymore. For me, it's nonsense. But you're talking about social welfare things, they're interested.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's like a step one, as you said, like if they are eating meat, they cannot understand about God.
Right.
First, so that's the reason I just came to the very basic, like how we are helping communities. They become very interested.
Yeah.
And like very favorable. Then suddenly discussion turned into like positivity and
We're going to start talking about climate action also. Real climate action.
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay, we'll stop right there, Haribol.
So for us to
Yes.
quick one, I think it's a good point. Prabhuji reminded. So for us, do you recommend us to take the bypass, or do you want us to face?
With your kids, you should teach the truth. With the others, you teach them whatever they're able to understand.
Okay.
So they'll have a positive opinion of Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
And little by little, they'll be able to understand everything, but not right away.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Thanks,
But with
Maharaj.
your kids, you should teach them right away
Right away.
what is the truth, but not in a brutal way, but, in an educational way, in a rational way. Right?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, regarding kids, one of my good friend, and they are like very good demigod worshipper. So one day I was talking to his kid, and I asked him, do you believe in God? Because you see your parents are doing a lot of worship and you participate sometime as well. So he clearly said no. And I was shocked. I
Why?
thought
Why
maybe
are
he
you
will say,
shocked? Don't be shocked.
I was thinking like he will say maybe a little bit or something, but because he's also part
No,
of the
but
family.
he went to school and he learned that there's no God. And the parents, they're completely in illusion. They're nonsense also. They're worshiping the demigods. Why are they worshiping the demigods? Because they want material benefits. No matter how sincerely they worship.
Correct. And then I gave him some basic fundamentals that, as you have explained earlier, like if the creation is there, so there must be some creator. Then, because he was talking exactly like science always.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
because and his parents have no clue.
no clue.
No clue at all.
Right.
So
But-
why should we be like that? No. We have to be enlightened to know what the truth is and how to present it authoritatively. Okay, we'll stop right there. We'll continue tomorrow. Look, we're not going to settle all the questions today, but we'll chip away at the big block of ignorance.
The test of religion is how much we feel the love of God.
Yeah, but we're teaching love of God. That's what Lord Chaitanya is teaching, love of God. So anybody who's religious, they should recognize it. We're not some crazy movement. we're teaching what the essence of all the religions is pure love of God. And we have to attain it also, right?
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandhamui Savadana Mate
Bandhamui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasadi Bai Ye Bhava Turiya Jai
Jahara Prasadi Bai Ye Bhava Turiya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hote
Krishna Prapti Hoya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Jai
Harana Kori Ho Mani Asha
Harana Koriya Mani Asa
Shri Guru Charani Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
He Prasadi Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिल जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशितो
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेद गाय जहाँ रचरितो
वेद गाय जन रचरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जैनारा बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अदंजन नर बंधु
लोके ना लोके राजीवाना
वेद गाय जन रचरितो
आह प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादा छाया
प्रभु को हृदय दे मोरे पद छाया
बेजास गुसुक त्रिभुवाना
सुखी भुवाना
इला प्रभु पाद पतित पावाना
प्रभु पाद पतित पवाना
जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा
जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा
जय गुरु देवा जय गुरु देवा जय गुरु देवा जय गुरु देवा
जय पुं देवा जय पुं देवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
पदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्यनामिने
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaveshtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagatsara Astatara Satara Shishi Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Adanta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi All glories to Samudra, all glories to Samudra, all glories to Samudra, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet, great order. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of Jesus already and attain the mercy of Krishna. One wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet, perfection fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing this character. Our spiritual master, yours is mercifully commended for, Lord and Master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three roads. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan, Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Haribo. Kodavani Pacharini.